we should probably get into the news. And we have essentially two news stories here, because the first one is a little combo deal, and it's Sam Wilson is returning as the Falcon. This is going to be taking place in Marvel's Legacy relaunch event. I don't know what the fuck to call this thing.
More of the same is what a lot of people are calling it so far.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. But part of me is hoping this is more DC Rebirth than it's Marvel now now. But yeah, so there's two articles, one, and we'll link to the other one, because the other one's mainly just, it's all the covers of it, and a lot of the covers are tributes to other issues. Like the revamp of Astonishing X-Men is tribute to the Joss Whedon run on Astonishing X-Men and stuff like that. So Corey, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think we went a little bit in on this last week, is that we were talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I like the Falcon as the Falcon. I don't dislike him as Captain America at all, but I don't really see why in the movies they would need to make a legacy Captain America. In comic books it works because you can always reset with comics very easily. In films, that's another thing entirely. Because actors age out, and it seems kind of silly.
Yeah.
But him going back to Falcon in the comics is fine. At this point in time, the relationship between him and Steve Rogers as Captain America is relatively strained due to what's going on in Secret Empire, and I'm interested to see what comes along with this as the new status quo.
Yeah.
What is Falcon's story going to be now that he's no longer filling in to Steve's boots, essentially?
Now I'm excited for this because of the fact that where I did enjoy the Captain America Sam Wilson book, because it tackled race. It tackled a lot of things that comic book fans had fallen guilty of, with the, oh, well, they cast Michael B. Jordan as the Human Torch. Oh no, Johnny Storm is not black. Is not black. Blah 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 blah. They tackle it like, Captain America's not black. Oh my gosh, why are you doing this to us? In there, and it was a great, compelling story. You know, like that's where I really enjoyed it. And you know, am I upset that
when you say great compelling story, you don't mean the Josh Trank Fantastic Four movie, though, right? You mean Sam Wilson Captain America?
Sam Wilson is Captain America, not the Fantastic Four. I just
didn't want you to embarrass yourself and us entirely by.
Oh no. See, I don't like. You can complain about the Josh Trank Fantastic Four movie. The least thing you need to complain about is Michael B. Jordan playing Johnny Storm.
Yeah.
I mean, if your problems are with that, you would need to watch the movie just to realize how much it sucked.
That movie was nothing in the blame of that movie goes towards the casting.
I would rather watch the what is it, Roger Corman, that version, that Fantastic Four than that.
Sean, have you ever seen the Roger Corman Fantastic Four?
I have seen clips from it, but that's about as far as I've gotten with it. And I don't know that I could sit through the whole thing. I mean, I'm sure I could, just from a standpoint of saying I've experienced this, but I don't. From what I've seen, I don't think I could buy into that. I would rather see the newer movies, as bad as they are.
It was certainly more beholden to the original material than the most recent film.
Mm-hmm.
The early 2000s ones with Chris Evans in the Human Torch and Ian Griffold and all those characters, I think was very true to Fantastic Four. I think it was just what none of them have been true to, except for the Corman one, is Doctor Doom. And they haven't told very good stories. But the Corman one, I remember watching it on VHS. We had it at one of the comic shops that I managed when I still was in Michigan. And I play every once in a while. It's not memorable. It's not good. It's not even one of those things that you see it in that time period where you don't have a lot of superhero movies and say, oh, this is fantastic because it's the only Marvel superhero movie we have at this point. Right. It just wasn't. It's akin to the made-for-television Captain America movies, which as a kid I loved, but as an adult I'm like, none of that works. So it's right in there with its time, and I love when people say, "Oh, the Corman one was much more true and a much better representation of Fantastic Four." I don't know, man. Dr. Doom looked like Gonzo from the Muppets, and when they finally decide to make the Human Torch into the Human Torch, it's obviously hand-drawn animation and is just a hot mess. But it's worth seeing it. It's worth seeing it for the one time, just like seeing the Generation X movie or the Power Pack made-for-TV movie. All of those things, you got to sit through them once if you have the opportunity, and then you can walk away and just know, thank God. Thank God for that.
Although, now that you mention it, I kind of want to see the Muppets do Fantastic Four. I think we might finally get the Fantastic Four movie we want. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be actually... the thing is that we have the Fantastic Four movie we want. It's called The Incredibles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
So, I mean, going through... so, Corey, can you explain a little bit of the controversy of what Marvel Legacy is possibly hitting at here?
Yeah, so what Marvel's run into as a company, one of their biggest problems lately seems to be not even the content of their books, not even the stories and stuff. Certainly the people who spend more time tweeting than actually making the comics. But it seems to be their marketing. Because where there's been frustrations lately is we know that a couple months back, one of the people made a statement of, we tried to really push diversity in our comics, and the response hasn't been good. And they kind of made the blame be about the diverse characters that they were introducing, as opposed to the fact that they were doing event after event, and the comics were selling for $3.99 to $4.99 to $5.99. So they were pricing out people. They were constantly relaunching. They just didn't seem to understand where retailers are coming from, saying your comics don't sell anymore. And yes, it may be that people want to read Steve Rogers as Captain America, but Steve Rogers had a comic. It may be that they want to read the original Thor as Thor. Well, Odin's Son had a comic. So I'm not sure exactly. It certainly they were taking in directions of Tony Stark isn't Iron Man anymore, but Tony Stark is kind of in Iron Man, even though he's dead and some like artificial intelligence thing. I don't know what he is.
He's unconscious, uploaded his brain before
he's the new Jarvis
dying. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the problem, maybe the people don't want to read comics about Riri Williams as Ironheart or whatever, or maybe don't want to read about Victor Von Doom as Superior Iron Man, or maybe it's not that. Maybe it's a lot of other things. So Marvel has been saying that they're going to push out this new legacy thing that's going to get them back to basics, and it's going to reintroduce some of the more established characters, and it's going to be a core reshuffle of Marvel into what made Marvel great. And how they introduce it is a lot of covers for books that look like they're the same goddamn books, just in homage covers to old books. And they don't give you any information as to who's writing them. They don't give you any information as to who's drawing them or what the story content is. It's just a bunch of goddamn covers that look like the same shit. And that's not going to help them. And if those books come out and they're $5 a pop, that's not going to help them either. So Marvel had to basically start a whole other like tour, not a tour exactly, but they're going to be talking to retailers about the legacy thing. They're going to be talking to the Comics Pro retailers, which is a comics professional retail organization that is like, you have to pay to be a member of it and everything. but they're going to go up to them and say, no, no, this is really what Legacy is about. It's like, well, you should have done that from day one. And while you do have to put some information out to the retailers, you kind of have to put it out to the fans too. And I'm sure that stuff will leak, but they're just not doing a very good job of selling what Marvel is today. Whereas when DC did Rebirth, they seemed to pick up from the fans what the fans felt they were missing in the New 52, especially with Superman, but even across the board with some of their other titles as well. They said, okay, we get it. The New 52 was way too much of a departure from the core of what our characters have been about for all these years. Let's try to get back to that. And it's not all been 100% successful, but it's been far more successful than what DC had been going through before that for the last 5 years. And I just don't know that Marvel gets it. I like the Legacy covers as an aspect of it. I like the promise that some of these books that have had longstanding numeration of, like, we're on number 700 or something of Spider-Man, and they've just renumbered it so many times at number 1 that you don't get to see that Legacy aspect of it. They're saying that they're going to bring back the original numbers again, or they're going to say, like, for the last 10 years that we've had 1 through 15 and then 1 through 6 and 1 through whatever, we're going to add them all up to be where Spider-Man should be. That's nice, but you still haven't proven as a company that you know how to make the comics compelling for sales. And that's where the problem is. And does it have to start at the top? Does it have to be like the editor-in-chief of Axel Alonso? Does it have to be Tom Brevoort? Do those people have to go away? And that was much the same way as what people were saying about DC. It's like you keep putting Dan DiDio and Jim Lee in charge, and they keep doing the same stuff over and over again, and it's showing that people aren't taking to their vision. Do we need to get a new visionary in there? Do we need to get a classic visionary in there? Some people have been screaming Jim Shooter should come back. I'm sure nobody louder than Jim Shooter himself. But we don't know enough at this point to say if this is a good thing or a bad thing. But there are certainly characters like America, the Miss America book, is going to continue. The Miss Marvel character is going to continue. The Champions are going to continue. A lot of these things we know are coming back and staying on the same path they were already at. So what have we seen that's changed? Nothing so far. And that's maybe okay, maybe not. Who knows? But the things that have been rumored so far is that we'll see some of the characters return to their classic states, like we'll get Bruce Banner back as Hulk. We'll get Steve Rogers back as Captain America in some way after this event, and Tony Stark and all of those things. That's what people believe that they were being sold. We just haven't seen that part announced yet. And I think that comes down again to poor marketing.
No, definitely. So I already know Corey's stance on this, and I don't want to ask again, but Sean and Kevin, you guys don't read comics, do you?
I'm not a big comic reader, mostly because of the cost. With having 4 kids, it's kind of cost prohibitive. But I just learned recently that my local library has started carrying a lot of the collections. And I just checked out the JLA 3 through 6, and I'm starting to work through those. So I mean, I'm familiar enough with it to know. And I think from my perspective, as someone who isn't a real deep comic reader, having the characters be who I expect them to be is kind of what I'm looking for. Like, you know, I don't like trying to figure out, okay, which Flash is this, which, you know, we're in Marvel, which Captain America is this, and why is this one? And, you know, so it gets a little bit too convoluted for me. It's same thing with the renumbering system. Like, you know, we're going to keep resetting. And now, you know, something I know about Captain America is no longer true because it's in this version and not that version. And, you know, so I can say from a very casual comic fan perspective, or someone who is just starting now to get into the comic book side of it, it does tend to confuse things. So, but I don't think that that's who they're doing this for, you know.
No,
so
like I said before, my hope with this is because I came into comic books at a weird time. I came in with in Marvel Now and with the New 52. You know, where I was reading comics every day. So I've been reading comics you know, every week for about 5-6 years now, I think. And God, like, how long have we been doing the podcast? Because it's been almost hand in hand. And so for me, it's one of those, like, if they're going to go back to the numbering system, I you know, like I appreciate that, like, because, you know, DC did that with Detective Comics and Action Comics when they did the Rebirth, and it's one of those, like, it's like, okay, yes, it makes sense, because you have, especially when you have these long, you know, running titles, number them that way. I do agree, like, there has been number one fatigue, where it's like every year, oh, there's a new number one, and it's like, no, don't do a new number one unless you're gonna cancel the book, like actually full on cancel the book.
Hit a stopping point. That was one of the frustrations that I saw as a retailer. Is it's one thing to relaunch the book because you've got a new creative team and you're going to start a new storyline and you want to get people on board for that. But when you're giving me a new number one and the number one is actually continuing the story from number 27 of the last series, it just stopped. All it's going to do is cause confusion. It's going to cause frustration for the people who pick up that number one and are lost as to what was going on before. And when you try, as a retailer, my job is to get people their doorway into a comic. So the first thing we have to establish is what kind of stories and comics that you might be into. And then from there, where do you start? Where do you begin that you can feel safe that you're going to pick this up and not spend $4, $5, $10 on a trade to be totally lost or not get a whole story. And that's been a frustration since, honestly, the late 90s, is that there aren't jumping on points. There aren't points that aren't tied so heavily to continuity. And Marvel had the opportunity to clean this up. That seemed like what they were going to do with their, what was the goddamn one that they did just a couple years ago, where everything went into different worlds and stuff all over the place. Wars. Secret War. Really? That was Secret Wars? Shit. Yep. Yeah. And so they automatically were doing a new version of a classic storyline, so you already have to kind of deal with the continuity from that. But then it seemed like Secret Wars was going to lead into a more refined version of the universe. But no, we've got a whole bunch of people popping over from the Ultimate Universe that is dead and gone. We have a whole bunch of different versions of characters from a lot of different places, from time jumps and everything. We got classic X-Men living in the modern day in a way that makes no sense. And it just seemed like Marvel doesn't know how to do legacy. DC is all about legacy. DC maybe has gone overboard with legacy because they have 4 or 5 Robins running around, and they have. If you asked me, so Clark Kent and Lois Lane have a child that's 10 years old, is that a cool thing to do with the Superman books? I would be like, maybe in Elseworlds. I don't know how that's going to succeed. But it's been incredibly successful for the Superman books because it's well written and it's well thought out, and the character is good. But I think DC maybe has overdone it with legacy, but Marvel just never knows how to do it. All they've ever done is said, oh, we've got to put somebody else in this suit and call them that name for a little while. Here's U.S. Agent as Captain America. Here's Thunderstrike as Thor. Here's War Machine as Iron Man. And then eventually we give them the old guys back. But now this time it's like, here's a couple of different Iron Mans. Here's a few different Spider-Men. Here's this. And it's like, I don't need 4 Icemen. You know, I don't understand why you think you need 4 Icemen. It doesn't make any sense at all. And it certainly doesn't make sense.
Because it's really hot right now, Corey. Why we need 4 Icemen is because it's really hot right now.
Especially over my balls.
In Northern California, yeah. Because you're sunburnt, you could use an Iceman just to be, so they go.
Which the new Iceman might. I just if if I can't sum up a character's origin and what their raison d'etre is in a paragraph or less, then there's something fundamentally wrong with that book. Unless it's a book that's completely self-contained and you're coming into like issue 40 of Why the Last Man, and even that I could pitch really easily at that point. I could pitch Preacher really easily in the last 10 issues of the book as easily as I could in the first 10 issues. But there's a difference with a so overbearing continuity and a lack of story, because all every story is meant to get you to the next event. And that's what Marvel's been doing. And this doesn't yet seem to be any different.
Even then, I feel like the Marvel with their whole, like, this is going to change everything thing, it's sort of been, they've been looking at it too small. So, for example, like we mentioned with Secret Wars, with what led up to before that was a something I wouldn't call an event, but like a mini series with Cataclysm over at the Marvel Ultimate Universe, where it was, it was the winding down of that, which it seems like the only thing that Secret Wars 2 really hit and covered was the quote unquote death of the Fantastic Four, and bringing in Miles Morales and his key component or people that he needed into the 616 Marvel universe.
But he's still
that's what
he's still from the Ultimate Universe though, right?
No, yeah.
So I have to go and have a conversation with a new reader who's like, okay, this Miles Morales character, how did he become Spider-Man? Well, you see, there was this other Marvel universe over here.
No. See, even
after Jeff Loeb fucked the dog on it, and
I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna pause you right there. With this one, you don't have to do that, because the origin of how he got his powers is still the same. It's because they hit on that. It's still his uncle stole a spider and it bit him.
But
that part
is still became Spider-Man because Peter Parker died, except he's kicking it with Peter Parker.
See, and that's where I have a big problem with a lot of these is, I have no problem with Miles Morales taking over the Spider-Man mantle. The problem is when Miles Morales is doing it and Peter Parker's doing it and somebody else is doing it. And like you said, you've got multiple Spider-Men running around at the same time. And you got to know which universe, which one's in. And that, to me, that's the issue that I have with them.
And it also kind of takes away the specialness of the characters.
Yeah.
There's Spider-Man, and he does whatever a spider can, except this other guy does whatever a spider can, and this chick Silk all of a sudden can do what the spider can too. And Spider-Woman doesn't do what a spider can, but she's Spider-Woman, and she looks cool, and she's got the boobs. Sure. I just... I don't have a huge problem with the characters with same power sets, as long as you treat them differently, you make them different. But when you make them all incredibly similar, or worse, the same, then it's hard to make that pitch to a reader. Well, which Spider-Man is my Spider-Man? And I like the idea that everybody gets a Spider-Man, and that's the argument that was made. I think Dwayne McDuffie did the story where some kid imagined that he met Spider-Man, and Spider-Man revealed himself to him, and Spider-Man was African-American because the kid was African-American. And in his mind, that's who Spider-Man was. And then the Donald Glover thing of wanting to play Spider-Man in a movie, why couldn't he? There was no reason why he couldn't. He would have done an amazing job playing the Peter Parker character, but because the internet went crazy, and because somebody saw it and said, well, we could do that, but why don't we make a brand new character that has his own story and his own ideas and stuff like that, but make him Spider-Man based off that? That's cool. I love the idea of Miles Morales. I just don't love the idea of having to make a 30-page synopsis of who Miles Morales is to get somebody into his comic. That's just the hardest part.
Yeah. No, yeah. I don't know. My hope with Marvel Legacy, with Sam Wilson becoming, going back to the Falcon, which even then there are still some problems with that because when in his Captain America book, he had a sidekick who became the new Falcon. It was like this genetic. I'm blanking on the villain, but it's like one of the villains who messes with does like gene splicing or whatever.
The High Evolutionary.
Not him. It was someone else. I can't think of exactly who it was, but fused this one kid with Red Wing. And he was the new Falcon for a long time, and all that. Basically, all I'm getting at is my hope is that the Marvel legacy is more DC rebirth and not Marvel now to the third power.
And I want Marvel to do good books. I want Marvel to be successful. I'm shitting on them a little bit, but I'm shitting on them because I don't know if they have gotten it yet. And I'm not saying that I'm right, but I'm saying that the fans so far are not responding well, and we'll have to see. But I really want Marvel to be super successful.
Yeah.
And I get something out of it, even if I don't read the comics, by the fact that a lot of this stuff does wind up affecting the films at some point.
No, yeah, definitely. The next story that we have is about TV ratings. And it's that Jimmy Fallon has finally broken the Stephen Colbert's 5-month winning streak. It's since the week of January 30th, Stephen Colbert, it's been Colbert and then Jimmy Fallon and then probably Kimmel after that and stuff and all that. But so, Jimmy Fallon finally claimed his victory with an averaged a slim 340 or
34,000.
Yeah, 34,000 viewers more than CBS's Late Late Show with Stephen Colbert for that week. So, Sean, you've said you've been watching the Colbert show. You and Kevin have.
Yes.
Are you surprised about this? Like, what is your take with hearing this?
I'm not surprised. Kevin, are you surprised by this, or
That
Colbert lost his spot to Fallon?
Not particularly. I mean, having seen both of them, they both have a very different approach, I think, that given time and circumstances appeals to different people. Fallon, I personally prefer Colbert simply because Fallon's a little too strange for me.
He's a little sticky.
Yeah, like, and personality-wise, there's just something about him that I personally don't, it doesn't speak to me, but I know for a lot of people it does. But at the same time, I'm not really surprised by this fact because, for one, I didn't realize that Colbert had more viewers to begin with, so it's not really surprising to find that out. But no, I wasn't particularly surprised by it when I heard it either.
I think the biggest thing to this story is looking at the timeline. The story itself mentions the fact that Colbert's 5-month winning streak started the week of Trump's inauguration.
Yeah.
It's Corey mentioned in the pre-show, it stopped when Trump's been quieter for the last couple weeks. They've kind of clamped down on him and not letting him talk as much. The other thing is that Colbert since Trump has gotten in has become way more of a one-trick pony. He is constantly at Trump. He almost has 2 shows, the opening monologue and then the rest of the show. And the opening monologue some nights is nothing but Trump bashing. And I'm not a Trump supporter by any stretch of the imagination, so I appreciate the Trump bashing, but he's, like I said, he's kind of been becoming a one-trick pony, and he's getting mean. Before it just was like Trump. It's so easy to make fun of some of the stuff that he was making fun of, and he was doing it very smartly. But lately, it just seems more venom than humor.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of stuff in the late night is going to be a turnoff for the people who are tuning into CBS or ABC or NBC, as opposed to when he used to do it over at Comedy Central.
Well, and that's the funny thing is that it seemed to have been what turned more people on, is what we're saying, is that for the first several months of Colbert's show on CBS, it didn't seem like it had a direction. They were trying to take the Colbert that we knew and push that aside. And what he did is he re-embraced some of his persona from the Comedy Central thing, because Colbert got the gig because we loved the Colbert Report and we loved him on the Daily Show. And to cut him off at the knees and take the political stuff out, I think was a mistake. But he is a great host in his own right, and he can do comedy. He has chops outside of being that character. If you've seen him in everything, if you've seen him on cartoon shows or old stuff on Comedy Central before Daily Show even came out, like Strangers with Candy and stuff, he's excellent. He's got range. But what happened is it was that perfect storm. And I remember Jon Stewart used to say stuff like this too, is that it's a lot easier to do comedy when things are a mess, when you're doing political comedy, because it gives you so much material. And Trump is an endless material guy. But at the same time, is that enough to run a whole show? Because Seth Meyers is doing very good stuff with the Trump things. You know, his rants on him are great as well. Maybe not at the same amount of focus as what Colbert is. And maybe that's, again, because we expect that focus from Colbert. But you're right. It's either that people are starting to find it too mean, or people are maybe starting to identify or appreciate Trump. I don't think so. Some people do. Absolutely, some people do. Or that it's just so much of the same thing. Or like me, I just want to tune out sometimes. I have to go for stretches of periods where I can't look at political news and I can't listen to a lot of political comedy because it's just overwhelming, the amount of shit that's happening. It's like you don't want to turn a blind eye to it because you start missing things that are happening. Right. And you need to be involved and you need to be aware. But I don't need to be hammered with it when I'm looking for just straight up entertainment.
Yeah.
And so in that regard, plus we're talking about a 34,000 viewer gap shifted suddenly. This is really good news because it means that both shows are successful.
Yeah.
And there can be a back and forth, a balance, a teeter-tottering a little bit of two guys who are bringing you entertainment in late night, and Kimmel and Conan as well. And they're all doing their own things, and they're all making, you know, people have enjoyment and giving us the option. Like, I'm not digging Colbert's shtick tonight, so I can turn over to Fallon, or I can turn over to Kimmel, or I can go over and check out Trevor Noah's take on what's going on with the political stuff. I've got options, but they're all good shows and they're all successful. So that's great, because the worry was that Colbert wasn't performing at Fallon's range, and did that mean that CBS made a bad choice? I think they'll just have to reconfigure the show again.
Yeah. I think that he just needs to be reined in a little bit on the opening monologue. To me, that's the issue, I think, because like I said, it's so, he keeps beating that same drum over and over again. And you watch the stuff after the first break. Midnight Confessional with Stephen Colbert, the thing where he puts on the big fuzzy hat and makes the proclamations.
That's like one of the best parts of the whole show.
Yeah, the deep thoughts with big stars or whatever. When they, you know, he did a thing with Michelle Obama where they were camping out and they were like, you know, 8 years old and talking about, and it was friggin' hysterical. But it's just, you know, when he just goes after Trump, it goes after Trump, it goes after Trump, and it's not. Like, I'm starting to see, I think, his own personal distaste for Trump come through, and it's not so much humor as it is vitriol, and that's where I think people have a problem.
Yeah, and when you get someone like John Oliver, who only has to do a show one night a week, and does a very good show, and it doesn't have the limitations of being on mainstream TV and everything. When you have John Oliver, each week he picks a different theme. Now, some weeks he says, yeah, this week Trump just was so far out of hand, we have to talk about him. Right. We have to. But he still tries to concentrate the show on a lot of different stuff. And he comes at it more from an educational point of view of, like, I'm trying to teach you guys about this as much as I'm trying to make you laugh through it. And Colbert's, you're right, it's a monologue. Now, some people that might be the one thing they're hunger for, and they tune in for that opening monologue, and the rest of it doesn't matter. And that may be where their numbers are strongest, and so they keep up with that. But for people who come in and they want to see the people interviewed, like that was always the thing with me with the Daily Show, is I never really liked the interview portion of it. I liked the portions where he went on his political rants. That's what I watched that show for. Sometimes this gets in between the rant at the beginning and the interview at the end. Sometimes they were good, sometimes they weren't. It depended on who the correspondent was. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I tune into that to see Jon Stewart, hold political people's feet to the fire and hold news people's feet to the fire. I feel like that was something that we didn't have that voice before, and it was important to see that. Now we're getting that voice from a lot of different places. I think we're in the era of people who learn from The Daily Show and who learn from Stewart. And Colbert was there before Stewart was. So, I mean, it's not just all John, but It's that same kind of mentality. And I don't think we need it as hammered down in this type of show, unless that's the show that they wanted to be. But it seems like a weird thing to take what it was David Letterman's show and make it that. And Letterman was always political, and Letterman was never about pulling punches. But and Letterman doesn't really like Donald Trump either.
Yeah. No,
but I do think it changes the dynamic of what the show has been for the last 30 years.
Right. And I can't see Letterman getting out there every night for 5 months, basically, and going after the same person.
Yeah. But to that point, though, when you have a person, like you have, and I'm gonna phrase this in a different way. You are the CEO of a company. You have press people, and they release a press like Apple. We'll look at Apple. It's one of the biggest companies in the world, and you got their press people. They're like, "Oh, we got the new iPhone S or iPhone 7S, and it's going to do this, 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 and this." And then Tim Cook comes out and goes, "Yeah, the iPhone 7 or 7S is going to be the greatest phone ever. It's gonna grant your wishes. It's going to do this and that." And like he does this over deliver thing. You're sort of going to and contradicts what his people have stopped, thought, written out, read, and to make it sound smart. And then, you're just going to shit all over that. It sort of seems like, okay, you're giving them material. Like this happened back in the George Bush era, the George W. Bush era, except everyone wasn't like, "Oh my gosh, he's never done politics, he doesn't know." It was like, he sounds a little, he's a little bit dumb and all that. That's why people went to The Daily Show. That's why I went to The Daily Show as a, young high schooler and all that, was because, they're saying stuff that's contradicting and is making me see, all right, yeah, maybe he's not making smart choices and all that. The other part I will throw in here real quick is the article from the Hollywood Reporter is saying that the victory for the Tonight Show may be short-lived, as the Late Show's winning streak has also seen the CBS telecast widen the margin of victory with live plus 3-day returns. In short, more people catching up on Late Show with DVR and VOD. So the 34,000 viewer gap could or may evaporate. But on the Tonight Show side, they are still dominating with the 18 to 49-year-olds. The latest week also marked the NBC show's biggest demo win since January. Its average of 0.68 rating in the key demo outperformed the Late Show's 0.42 rating by 62%.
Yeah, if we're going to talk anything about the Trump thing, I just want to make this one point, which is what I'm doing right now is an example of it. The guy is a narcissist, and good or bad, hearing his name said on TV so much just kind of feeds into his power. Mm-hmm. I think, and one of the great things about The Daily Show that I really liked is that while it may have been slightly more one than the other, or maybe not even slightly, they did go after all sides.
Yes.
During the Obama years, they went after Obama and they went after the Democrats and everything. And while we have a boogeyman right now, if you keep screaming Candyman into the bathroom mirror, don't be surprised when fucking Candyman comes up and kills you.
And the last thing I'll plug is with the British TV shows, one of the shows, The Last Leg, they have a Trump jar where every time they said the name Trump, they put in a pound, a British pound into the Trump jar. So I believe after this last week, they donate, and all that money was going to go towards Syrian refugees.
Oh, I thought it would go toward the charities that Trump said he was going to donate to and then didn't.
Yeah, but no, because they started it with the whole oh god, it was one of the Trump with the whole like Trump saying we're not going to let in, or basically doing the travel ban. You know, let's just keep them out and stuff like that. Like, no, we're gonna actually do, because you know they looked at this and they're like, okay, they stopped, thought like, we're doing this. This is smart to let these people in because these are people who are refugees. This is not terrorists. This is not extremists. And I made I'm gonna make a slight little change of plans here with my else view in a second, but we'll get to that. And so they're donating. They donated, like, I think it was like 200 some, almost 300 pounds, to a Syrian charity, a Syrian refugee charity.
I could donate 300 pounds by cutting off my leg.
But is it pounds sterling?
I don't know, man. You can dip it in whatever you want.
I was gonna say, I got a metal plate in my arm. We could start there.
You got a lot of metal in you. Come to think of it.
I got a little captain in me.
We should probably mention our Patreon. If you want to be a partner like Growly Bear, you can go to gncast.com/support. And on there you will find ways like Growly Bear did, where you join our Patreon, become a partner, and help us out, help us keep the lights on, help keep your partner afloat.
For more on this Galactic Network podcast, go to gncast.com. That's gncast.com.